Okay, good afternoon, Chairman. I can confirm it is just after 4 o'clock. The live stream has commenced and we are ready to start the meeting.
Thanks, Sammy. Good afternoon and welcome to the Development Control meeting of the 23rd of November 2020. I'd like to advise that today we'll be using Zoom to provide a live stream to members of the public, and please can we ask that you bear with us as we are dealing with numerous internet connections and sometimes this can cause a slight delay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Sammy Winter will be your Zoom host for today. Dean Mims, Chris Green, Gordon Sutherland and Rob Tate will be officers presenting during the meeting. Matt Seven is here to offer IT support if required, and Sammy Winter will be clerking the meeting today. During the meeting, all participants except for the chairman will be muted, and this should remain during the whole of the meeting unless you have asked to speak. May I take this opportunity to remind members that all members are invited to participate in the meeting, but would ask that you use the raise hand button, which can be found at the bottom of the participant screen should you wish to speak on any matter. The chairman will be notified of your request and he will then invite you forward to speak. Once you have been called to speak, please could we ask you to unmute yourself and then once spoken, mute yourself again. Anyone who has telephoned into the meeting will be invited to speak after all those that have raised their hands have spoken. When asking a question, please could we ask members to refer to page numbers within their report or agenda to ease to officers. If we have to adjourn the meeting, the chairman will advise of this and the anticipated length of adjournment. When voting on an application today, this will be undertaken by a roll call of those members present. Once your name is called, please unmute yourself and respond accordingly. When confirming the minutes and noting delegated and appeal decisions, unless any member raises an objection on these matters, these will be confirmed by assent. Members can only partake in voting on an application if they have been present for the entire discussion on an application. I can confirm that today Councillor Camden will be substituting for Councillor Hammond and Councillor Graham Carpenter will be substituting for Councillor Freeman. Chair to advise that application 06200020F, Land Adjacent Rains Court Lodge, is an application of a relative of Councillors Paul and Donna Hammond. As advised, Councillor Hammond will not be partaking in today's committee and has sent his apologies. This application was reported to the planning manager as an application submitted by a relation of Councillor Donna and Paul Hammond in a personal capacity. The planning manager has checked and made a record on the file that he is satisfied that it has been processed normally and the Councillors Donna and Paul Hammond have taken no part in the council's processing of the application. Thank you, Chair. If I could just undertake a roll call of members present. Councillor Annison.
Present.
Councillor Bird.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Fairhead.
Present.
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
Present.
Councillor Graham Carpenter.
Oh, yeah. Present.
Councillor Lawn.
Present.
Councillor Camden.
Present.
Councillor Mogford.
Present.
Councillor Myers.
Yeah.
Councillor Wainwright.
Yeah.
Councillor Williamson. You just muted yourself again, Councillor Williamson, sorry.
Said present first time.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Wright.
Present.
And Councillor Barbara Wright.
Present.
Thank you. Chair to advise officers present in the meeting today, we have Caroline Watling, Monitoring Officer, David Gleeson, Director of Planning and Growth, Dean Mims, Planning Manager, Chris Green, Senior Planning Officer, Gordon Sutherland, Senior Planning Officer, Rob Tate, Planning Officer, and myself, Sammy Wintle, Corporate Services Manager. Chairman, if we can now start the agenda items, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. So we move to item number 1, apologies for absence, please.
Chairman, today we have apologies from Councillor Hammond and Councillor Freeman.
Thank you. We move to item number 2. Any declarations of interest from councillors, please?
Yes,
Councillor
please. I'd just like to declare that I know of somebody who's going to speak on one of the applications we have today, but nothing to do with a planning application. It's with a different association, but just know of the person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman,
sorry, just the monitoring officer would just like to come in there, please.
Oh, God.
Just to make members aware that if they regard the councillors Hammond as a close friend, they should, as established in the Constitution, they would need to declare a personal interest on the item, although they could still participate and vote. However, if you feel that you are biased or conflicted because of your friendship or relationship with either of the councillors Hammond, then I would advise you not to speak or vote on the matter. So if you could reflect that now as we go forward to declare interests, please.
So Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
Hello. Oh, yes, Chairman. I'd obviously like to, the members of the same group, we're all still friends with them. So I think that's probably most of the group need to confirm a declaration there.
Thank you. Councillor Mogford, you raised your hand.
Yes, Sammy. I'm a member of the Broads Internal Drainage Board, which is one of the consultees on the Ormsby St Margaret application. I'll make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Camden.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't mind declaring an interest, the same as Councillor Flaxman-Taylor, but I may have a valid question on the that part of the agenda, if I may ask.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, Councillor Camden, was that a question now or a question on the application?
No, sorry, on the application.
Yeah, you'll still be entitled to speak and vote on the application. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Carpenter.
Yes, thank you, Sammy. I'd like to declare an interest at item 5. The applicant is known to me. Also, one of the people speaking today with regard to that item is also known to me, and I would class Councillor Paul Hammond as a friend as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bird. I don't know whether your sorry, I couldn't see whether that was a hand raised.
Yes, it was. Thank you, Chairman. As regards to item 6 of page 4 on the agenda, my views on HMOs in the borough are well documented, as you can see behind me. So I will not be taking part in this discussion on that subject. And I'm also known to Paul Hammond. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mogford, sorry, you've got your hand raised again.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sammy. Yes, I'm also known to Paul Hammond, and he's known to me. So I better declare that as a personal interest on the Ormsby St Margaret application. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Mogford, just to confirm that that's not the Ormsby application. That is
item 5. Item 5, yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Lawn, was that hand raised? Thank you.
Yeah, that's just declaring interest. They are. It's a bit late really, but the Hammonds are both friends of mine, but it won't affect my decision whatsoever.
Thank you. I can't see any further hands raised, Chairman.
Yes, Sammy, and just myself, item number 4, the agent, Glenn Holmes. I know Glenn Holmes from when he was an architect at Great Yarmouth Borough Council a number of years ago. And item number 5, obviously I know the Hammonds in their capacity as a councillor, and also their son, Lee Hammond. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Sammy, sorry. Can I just say, I mean, on behalf of my group, I mean, we all know Paul Hammond. We all know him. So, you know, everybody's been saying the same thing. We all know him because we're councillors together. He's certainly not
I'm certainly not, he's not a friend of mine, but we all know him. So
Okay, I'll just let the monitoring officer come in, Trevor. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, I just need to clarify what the definition of a personal interest. So I'll read it from the Constitution. You have a personal interest in a matter being considered at committee meeting when it's not a pecuniary interest, but a decision on it could affect the well-being or financial position of family or close friends. So that is the limb of the definition that is relevant here. So the wording in the Constitution is that it could affect the well-being or financial position of a close friend. So if you would, you only have a personal interest if you think it would, if you know Paul or Donna Hammond or potentially their son, and you feel that a decision on this might affect their well-being or financial position. So it's not just that you know them, it's that you would regard them as a close friend.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have no further hands raised, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Amy. So item number 3, the minutes to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of October 2020, which can be found on pages 5 to 17. Everybody happy with those minutes?
Chairman, I have confirmed I have no hands raised. So if no member raises an objection, these can be confirmed on assent. And as I have no hands raised, we will take them as confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. So then we move to item number 4, which is the application land of Foster Close, Ormsby. And that is with Chris Green. Thank you.
Sorry,
you,
Chairman, did you want to just advise that this application is the application that has
Yes.
now been brought back to the committee following deferral at the committee meeting held on the 16th of September?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. Sorry, Chris, you can continue.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, it was also presented in very briefly last time round, but further deferred upon a ruling from the monitoring officer that because we changed the recommendation, it should come back again with persons with an interest having the right to speak. I'll now try and start the show. Share screen and PowerPoint, right, and go to slideshow. Come on, it's gone forward one, hasn't it? Okay, I think we're there. I'll just put the pointer up. Okay, so I'll briefly recap on the previous presentation. What we have here is a parcel of land that's off another parcel of land which has permission for 7 properties on, accessed off a stub known as Foster Close, which runs off Simmons Avenue from Station Road in Ormsby. Let's just move on. So again, the site plan and the earlier version of the indicative plan that was presented. And I've now the updated version, but what I should stress on all these is that because this is an outline application with only matters of access currently to be debated, things such as scale, layout, landscaping and appearance are all reserved matters and would come back to members in the fullness of time when a detailed application is made, should members be minded to overturn the recommendation. So again, a illustration of where the water bodies are within, I better just move this because I can't see my notes, location of water bodies within the immediate vicinity. The point here is that newts were raised towards the end of the process last time. We now have a process in place of district level licensing, which has recently come into being, whereby if you have newt or even potential newt habitat near a development site, you can, rather than conducting a survey, which of course is sensitive to the time of year when it could be conducted, you can apply to have a certificate which the applicant has now obtained from Natural England that allows them to pay for mitigation of the potential for newts in the area. It may not be that there's any there, but the fact is they can mitigate by way of payment, which prevents delay occurring to the commencement of construction projects by virtue of having to wait until the right time of year to conduct survey. I put this slide in as well, partly because this updated version, very poor in quality though it may be, of the agricultural land grading map was shown to members in the context of the other two sites recently discussed for Badger Building. And it clearly shows that as far as DEFRA and Natural England are concerned, the agricultural land gradings remain as they always were. But the point of putting this in is that in the case of this particular site, which is accurately plotted, a small portion of it is within the grade 1 category, the majority within the grade 3. And the grade 3 seems to be coincident with the settlement boundaries of existing for Ormsby. And I think the significance of that is that historically places would develop around poorer quality land, because quite simply you could build on that land and still farm the better bits. I've also included this slide, which shows historic flooding. Members will be aware that there was considerable concern expressed by members of the public that there was the potential for flooding from water running off the site onto their back gardens. I think principally there's the properties at the back here who were concerned. This map is one that's published on the government's own websites, based upon Environment Agency information about where flooding has occurred historically. In other words, it's not the flood risk zones, it's where waters have actually stood, partly as a result perhaps of local surface water drainage failure. But it isn't, so it isn't flood zones, but it is historic records of where flooding has been. And the reason for putting this in is that members were somewhat doubting previously of the advice that had been given by both the local lead flood authority and the internal drainage board, that they were content with regard to the provision of a attenuation feature within the site, and that surface water runoff would not cause a higher risk of flooding to the people downstream from it. Now, the principle here is that on development sites, one should seek to achieve a rate of runoff that is no greater than the greenfield site rate. In other words, the rate that currently exists. And if that's correct, then the point is, as things currently stand, there doesn't seem to be a severe case of flooding occurring to the south and lower level of this land at the moment, nor should there be in future, because local lead for flood authority say they are satisfied, subject to final design, that it is possible to mitigate the effects of that from putting buildings on the land. So moving on again. Oh no, wrong thing. Okay, oh dear, too far. I've put this slide back in again. This is the one that shows you with the brown line where the two Badger sites are, and in this case the green line around the site represents the Foster Road site. And then you have the two other sites, OT2 off well, to the north of Ormsby, and OT1 to the west, which are both in the emergent plan. So we'll just have a few photographs around the site. This is Foster Close, showing you the stub. It has been measured and checked as being at 5.5 metres wide, which is the normal width for an access road with footpaths either side. What you will notice is there's the parking for a couple of driveways there that are partly concealed behind existing boundary walls. And I've had neighbours making objection who have supplied me with some further slides, which I thought are worth showing because they are slightly better than the ones I took. And looking the other way, so it gives you some idea as to the difficulties they say they will face entering and leaving that if this is a busier road. It will be a busier road anyway because permission has already been granted. Let me just go back and recap for a few seconds. If I put the pointer on here, you can see that there is an outline, or sorry, there's a full extant permission for 7 units on this portion of the land at present. So foster close would be used to access that. So this particular proposal adds another 33 to that. And looking west, and this is the bit of land where the 7 are to go. And a look along the boundary fence on that site. And a look across the existing open field just to demonstrate that it's currently open grassland. I put in a couple of pictures of properties at Front Station Road. This one's particularly interesting. This is the last property on the route out of town, so to speak, along Station Road to the east. It's interesting because the applicant has said that if he is fortunate enough to get permission today, he would put a haul road in, or be happy to accept a condition that that was a requirement of the application in order to provide construction access to the site without using foster close. Now, obviously, we'd want him to put the haul road some distance into the field so as not to cause harm to this particular property. Should we be minded, of course, or members be minded to overturn the refusal reason. This is looking along the boundary, so that's this particular boundary is on the east side of the site. It's a continuous hedgerow that runs down that side. And then again, some pictures that objectors have put in, illustrating the point that they claim that Station Road is too narrow for construction traffic to make use of it. And similarly, that the point, this is where Simmons Avenue joins onto Station Road, and you look, I think it's looking east actually, although the applicant, also the objector had labelled it as looking west. It's actually looking east, and I think the cars that are parked there relate to the playing field nearby. And another picture a little bit further along Station Road. And finally, one of the objectors has supplied some data on speed limit infringements on Station Road to illustrate the point that they believe Station Road to be unsafe. I have to say that we're not supporting that view that Station Road is unsafe in the sense that County Highways in their response have clearly said that they don't have a problem with a capacity of 40 units off Foster Close. So in essence, the reason for refusal relates to the matter of 5-year supply. This is a site that is outside the physical limits for development of the village. And we believe that we are at a point so close to being able to demonstrate a 5-year supply, it is unnecessary to give up such sites to development. That said, this doesn't detract as a proposal that much from the pattern of development in the village, it being surrounded on 3 sides by existing development. And it is reasonably well located with regard to getting from it into the village centre, with a continuous footway available both on Station Road and an alternative route along some back roads and footpaths. In addition, landscape impact is low because of the existing hedge. And if that hedge can be retained, then it would maintain its function in more or less concealing this development from the wider landscape impact, providing we agree to particular forms of development in particular locations, i.e. bungalows where appropriate. Remember, the indicative plans are just that, they're indicative at this present stage. In addition, the applicant has stressed that they would be quite happy to ensure that they developed away from that boundary so as to be assured that nothing within that eastern boundary, or indeed any other boundary, was affected by construction. So we have the little question of emergent policy. There is a policy in the new emergent plan that hasn't been objected to and therefore carries considerable weight. that would require us to demand, with regard to the section 106, that they count this as a contribution of 20% on 40 houses, because they've got the 7 which are in the same ownership on an adjacent site, already got permission for that. The idea is that when you then add 33 to it, that makes 40, and you should be asking for a contribution based on that and not on 33. That, of course, is a matter for the section 106 discussions, but we would say that if members were minded to overturn the refusal reason, then that would be a further discussion that we would have to have. I think I've covered matters with regard to new ponds and with regard to flood zone 1 and the principle of greenfield runoff and the flooding record. So I'll now move on to the final slide, which is essentially the recommendation, which is to refuse in line with the policy framework that indicates that we will have a 5-year supply demonstrable in about a month's time, and that this is so close that a high material weight needs to be given to it. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris, for that. Any members got any technical questions for the planning officer, please?
Chairman, I have no hands raised.
Okay then, so I invite Mr. Glenn Holmes as agent for the application to come forward, please, Mr. Holmes.
Good afternoon, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, Mr. Holmes. So you've got 5 minutes, Mr. Holmes, and I'll just let you know when you've got 30 seconds remaining.
Okay, thank you and good afternoon. This application, having been submitted back in April 2020, was made in the knowledge that the council only had a 3.5-year housing supply and was acknowledged as a sustainable site by the planning policy team in the Regulation 19 paper in February 2020. They also recognised that this site was small scale and not actively used for agricultural purposes. Following on from the committee meeting in September, where planning officers recommended this application for approval, we have since provided a revised indicative site layout in response to comments made by members. These include a buffer zone of open space with the Simmons Avenues properties to the west, and provides a mix of properties including 16 number 2-bed dwellings. 8 dwellings will be affordable as referred to in the committee report, all making the most efficient use of the site. May I also point out that no statutory consultees object and the ecology reports are accepted, and the Newt District licence has been issued by Natural England dated the 10th of November. Regarding Grade 1 agricultural land, this land is not farmland. This was recognised by the local planning authority during the local plan process as Site 124. The larger part of the site is Grade 3 in our opinion, and was previously used as the village cricket field. Turning to the 5-year housing land supply, the only reason now offered for refusal relies on new housing methodology, but as mentioned in the report, this does not carry full weight as yet. Furthermore, the emerging plan appears to be several months away from possible adoption following the examination in public, which commences next year. The report uses wording such as predicted and increasing weight, and there are no guarantees in terms of delivery of potential sites through the emerging local plan. Furthermore, paragraph 10.2 states the decision is finely balanced, which implies that the scales are tipped in favour of the scheme, as was the case with the new development at the rear of Dovedale, Butt Lane, Borough Castle, which was granted approval less than a month ago, based on marginal balance as referred to on page 14 in the minutes of this agenda. Turning back to the scheme, a local building firm is interested in the overall site and therefore early delivery can be achieved by committing to a reduced time period for commencement of development, as acknowledged in paragraph 3.2 of the report. In addition, Mr. Troy is happy to enter into a Section 106 or a unilateral undertaking with heads of terms covering the following as necessary: affordable housing, open space and a management plan, library contributions, habitat mitigation. Furthermore, discussions are well advanced with the diocese, who are the owners of the adjoining field, for a temporary haul road. Mr. Troy is happy to agree to a condition requiring the submission of a construction method statement to ensure construction traffic does not use Simmons Avenue and Foster Close, and to establish hours of operation, etc. To conclude, it seems grossly unfair that a month before any changes to the housing supply calculations can even be possibly considered, this scheme is being penalised following a recommendation to approve it at the 16th of September committee. As mentioned, this small site is sustainable and of no agricultural benefit. Given that there are no guarantees regarding delivery of housing and therefore there remains a shortage in supply, and that the previous recommendation was
30 seconds remaining.
Was to approve, and that all outstanding issues have now been resolved, and that all matters required through a Section 106 will be delivered. And as the case is finally balanced, the committee is respectfully requested to vote in its favour. Thank you, and if you have any questions, I will endeavour to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Any members got any technical questions for Mr. Holmes, please indicate to Sammy.
I have no hands raised, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes, for your time and your input. Thank you. I now call on Mr. Clare to come forward as an objector to the application, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you on behalf of the local residents. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can, Mr. Clare. So you have 5 minutes, Mr. Clare, and I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. Members will be aware there were a large number of objections to this development and of genuine concerns of the residents. The council encourages developers to consult with local residents, although clearly that wasn't the case here. And we appreciate that without a neighbourhood plan, it is difficult for members to gain an understanding of the wishes of the local residents in the whole. Hence, they have to rely on objections to schemes as they arise, and that can act as a barometer of local opinion. There's been a lot of objections to the 3 main schemes that have been discussed recently. Mr. Green has outlined the précis of the various objections, such as noise, impact to services, the environment, road safety, and so on. And these issues are normally addressed in the neighbourhood plan. It's reassuring to note that the planning officer's report addresses many of these concerns, and we were pleased to note that the officer's recommendation is for refusal. The planning officer's report has, however, been changed since the last meeting to mention a note from the applicant that the land was used as a cricket ground during the 1950s and 60s and has only been used for hay production since his purchase in 2002. He goes on to say that the change in land quality will reflect to some extent the reason why Ormsby was built on this less productive land. The important point here is that the loss of the Grade 1 agricultural land has now been removed as a reason for refusal. There is no further documentation on the council's website for this application, and we've consequently not been able to determine the validity of this statement at this time. It would have been very helpful, I feel, if this documentation had been placed in the public domain. Nonetheless, the DEFRA Magic Map still shows the land to be predominantly Grade 1. I did look at this, and the line curves across the site, and best probably is 50-50 Grade 1 to Grade 3. But local residents do comment that there has been the use of heavy farm equipment using the track to the side of the site for agricultural use in the last 35 to 40 years. And certainly the tenanted land to the west is cropped, and therefore there is evidence that this has been used in the past for agriculture. We'd asked that members show some consistency on this aspect in the light of recent refusals for other large developments where the DEFRA magic map has been cited. There is another concern, and that is regarding item 9.2 of the officer's report, where the numbers of properties will be established at reserved matters. So the concern is that there could in fact be an increase beyond the 40 properties already mentioned for this site. Road safety issues have been addressed by Chris Green in his report, and concerns obviously relate not just to the estates, Simons Avenue and Station Road, but also beyond. The speeding is a topic frequently discussed within the village and at parish council meetings, and there is a concern regarding increasing volume traffic. When the Foster Close Spur was designed nearly 40 years ago, I'm sure it was never envisaged that it would need to serve a further large extension to the estate. While this arrangement might be considered acceptable to provide access to the 7 properties already approved, it is frankly inconceivable that this is an acceptable risk for an estate of 40 or even more properties. We are unsure whether a highways officer has actually visited the site to determine the nature of the existing 1983 construction or not. The eastern end of Station Road is rural in nature and of reduced width, and the residents believe we are likely to see increased volumes through traffic through Station Road in the future as a rat run from the coast road through the village. Any additional traffic adding to the Station Road flows is therefore of great concern. The recent installation of the speed camera to Station Road has borne out the noticeable issues of speeding. The residents wish the village to retain its rural characteristics while ensuring safety for the local community. A councillor at the Area Development Control Committee commented that Ormsby is open to good quality developers, constructing good quality developments in appropriate locations. The residents echo this sentiment. We believe, however, that the Foster Close development being beyond the village boundary to an
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with the inherent safety, environmental and other concerns is not such a development. We would wholeheartedly endorse the recommendation of the planning officer and please ask members to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clare. Any members got any questions for Mr. Clare, please? Please indicate to Sammy.
No hands raised, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clare, for your time and input. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, I invite Parish Councillor Christine Lee to come forward, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. So you have 5 minutes and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. Yes, the Parish Council sent in its objection to this development on the 11th of June 2020, and following a review of all the recent submissions, our concerns very much remain the same, and we welcome the officer's recommendation to reject this development. We have several bases for objection. Firstly, the development is outside the development envelope set out in the local plan, and we note that other sites have already been allocated in Ormsby, sites OT1 and OT2 in the emergent plan. We object to the development of A1 agricultural land, which is still defined as agricultural land according to DEFRA and Natural England. We've heard the officer's comments here, but again, I would just like to echo what I believe Mr. Clare just mentioned around consistency on the definition of A1 agricultural land. It is essentially that rural aspect that has been considered. Resident objections have been numerous, and gathering the views of residents as to planning issues generally has been very important to us. And we'd like to note the parish is currently in the process of working towards a neighbourhood plan, which will assist with such matters in the future. We believe this outlined development of potentially 40 houses, that's 33 in addition to the current 7 which we have permission for, is overdevelopment, which presents very specific access issues. We're very concerned as to access during the building phase, particularly in view of the fact that Station Road narrows considerably towards Scrapby so as to be 1 metre narrower, which makes it difficult for cars to pass each other without first stopping. This will be an issue irrespective of whether or not a temporary haul road is put into place, and additional traffic volume will exacerbate this problem, both as part of the build and in the future. As a natural consequence of the overdevelopment of what is essentially a landlocked site as far as wider road access is concerned, numerous road safety issues have emerged, and these are our greatest concerns of road safety for both the residents of the proposed new estate, existing properties on Symonds Avenue, Foster Close, and beyond more generally onto Station Road. The issue, as I believe Mr. Clare said, is not specifically with the highways note of no concern, which looks at road width, visibility displays, etc. It's the very specific restricted nature of vehicular access to Foster Close, which we do not believe was envisaged to service an estate in excess of 35 properties when it was first put together. And we have that very specific, compelling diagram there, which was presented at the beginning, of two particular properties on Foster Close, which must reverse out onto a main road, onto the road, in order to get access and egress. That is the telling point. The spot is already a dangerous bottleneck for traffic accessing the Symonds Avenue and Bracecamp estates. Speeding and traffic volume has long been a concern in our village. From the 17th of October to the 16th of November, the Parish Council placed a SAM2 traffic camera on Station Road, just past the junction with Symonds Avenue, to capture traffic heading towards the village from the Scratby direction. In addition to confirming existing speeding concerns, where 17% of traffic was travelling in excess of 30 miles an hour, the most startling findings were that 20,840 vehicles passed this camera in 1 month. Taking account of the fact that that camera was only looking in one direction, on the most conservative estimate, an extrapolation means we're looking at approximately 30,000 vehicles travelling down this road per month, on what is essentially now becoming a rat run. To this, we must now add the additional, again, conservative estimate of 70 cars arising as the result of the proposed development, which concerns us greatly. Finally, we would reiterate again and note strongly the officer's report as to the sufficient 5-year land supply having been already achieved on the basis of giving the most appropriate high weighting to emerging policy.
30 seconds remaining. Thank you.
Thank you. Thus meaning there is no requirement to build. In light of all these points, the Parish Council strongly requests that the committee refuse this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Christine. Any members got any questions for Christine Lee, please, if they could just indicate to Sammy?
Councillor Tony Wright.
Councillor Wright.
Yes, could you just tell me what is the progress of the neighbourhood plan?
We're in early stages at the moment and hoping, subject to a little bit of clarification around the end of lockdown on the 2nd of December, to start beginning our consultation progress with the parish. So we have a questionnaire, a draft questionnaire in place, and draft postcards to be sent out to every property in the area, obviously with advertising as well, so that we can consult fully with everybody in the parish as to the way they'd like to see development in the future.
Thank you.
No further hands raised, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Christine, for your time and your input. Thank you.
Thank you.
I now call upon any ward councillors who wish to speak on this application to come forward, please.
So we have Councillor Freeman, who's joined just to talk on this application, Chairman, as ward councillor.
Councillor Freeman.
Yeah. Good afternoon, committee, and thank you for letting me say a bit more. I'd like just to clarify a few things that are of concern. We had a comment from the officer about this land is bordered on 3 sides by development. It's not. It's bordered partially on one side by part of Symonds Avenue, and on the short side it's bordered by the development which is proposed for the 7 houses in the back garden of the property that's making the application. As far as the agricultural land is concerned, the land to the east all the fields to the east are owned by the Diocese of Norwich and the Carter Trust. They are let to tenant farmers, and I don't think farmers would crop these every year if it wasn't a viable piece of land. That piece of land could be brought back into agricultural use. I am slightly concerned that suddenly 106 considerations are appearing. I can't see anything in the minutes or in the notes today, apart from the original ones, which were contributions to libraries and I think payment for a fire hydrant. So I am slightly concerned is why is it that this information is coming in really very, very late? I don't want to go over what everybody else has said. It is a real pity that we couldn't do a site visit because of COVID. This is a classic. I don't need to go over the facts, but how long is deliverable? There's been applications on this site going on 8, 10, 12 years. There's never been a brick laid. The outline application was consider access only, but we ended up getting involved with drainage and newts. The bigger problem that we've all said and came along all the time is that of road safety. Station Road is a rat run. You saw the slide and Christine Lee has talked about the figures. Well, I don't believe that people go in a circle around this village. They go down the road and they come back. So we're talking coming on for 40,000 vehicles. And this was in a period of half term and during most of lockdown. So I'm telling you, councillors, you know, this is a dangerous piece of road. We're now being told about a haul road. As a resident, I can tell you, you could not put a haul road across diocesan land onto a worse piece of road. That is the narrowest part of Station Road. I've told you before, I've been up there with a highways officer asking him to cut back the banks so that the water could at least run down the drains. We talk about sustainability. Yeah, it's really nice if you want to walk into the shops, you can use the Trod, which was funded by the Parish Council and Norfolk County Council. But many people, it's quite close to the coast. They'll want to walk down and take advantage of our lovely coastline. And what have they got to do? They've got to walk in the middle of the road because there is no footway. We know that people are looking for healthy lifestyle, so we want people to be out and about, but we don't want them walking in the middle of the road. I would say that the damning evidence, as far as I'm concerned, is that of the volume of the traffic. And at the same time, 7 properties have been approved on this site for some considerable amount of time. Nothing has happened yet. Foster Close could take those 7, but it certainly couldn't take any more. Obviously, I'm really pleased to see that the officer now has recommended this application for refusal. It is outside the parish limits. It is agricultural land, and we are now very close to our land supply. So I do ask you very much to agree with the officer and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman. Any councillors on the committee wish to ask Councillor Freeman any questions? Just indicate to Sammy, please.
No questions, Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Freeman, for your time and your input. Thank you. Okay, then, so it's now over to the committee to debate this proposal. And what do you think? It's over to you.
No hands raised, Chairman. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wainwright.
Councillor Wainwright.
Just muted, Councillor Wainwright, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, obviously, I've read the report in great detail and which was for approval. Obviously, that was deferred to look at a couple of things. And now we've got it back to refuse on a assumption that we're going to reach our land supply anytime soon. I mean, looking at this application, there's absolutely no reason I can see to refuse it. I mean, Norfolk County Council haven't got a problem. The Leith Flood Authority haven't got a problem. In actual fact, they say it would be better because there wouldn't be so much water coming off. I mean, we hear about speeding all the time from Councillor Freeman. Speeding is a problem throughout the borough, but it doesn't stop developments. The police stop speeding.
And, you know, as I've said before, you come to other parts of the borough, come to Bradwell and see the speeding that occurs there. And basically, we still get developments going on. I mean, I haven't seen any statistics to say there's been serious accidents on this stretch of road. We've got some indications that people flout the speeding limits. Well, we know people do that. And I'm sure all members here at some stage have flouted the speeding limits in some way. But, you know, this development is going to give us, amongst other things, 16 two-bedroom dwellings, 8 of which will be affordable. These type of properties are desperately needed in the borough, especially in the northern and southern parishes, where there is as I say, there is a shortage. We need our young people to be able to stay in the villages they were born in. And by building two-bedroom houses, we give them that opportunity. From there, they can trade up to 3 4-bedroom houses, as I'm sure members here today have done. So, you know, we're being very short-sighted in this. There's absolutely no reason to turn this down. And I just refer to another application that's coming forward, and I won't name the name, but it says, Policy US 63, adjustment to the core strategy housing target, recognises that the housing requirement over the plan period needs to be reduced from 7140 to 503 new dwellings. This has the effect of giving the borough a 5-year housing supply allocation within the emergent plan, and therefore removing the lack of the supply argument upon adoption. At present, this carries little weight, and the delivery of houses has weight unless or until the local plan part 2 is adopted in the spring summer of 21. Now, quite clearly, at this moment in time, we do not have a 5-year land supply. And in another report that's being presented to members tonight, it clearly says that. So I think this, you know, this reason for refusal on the land supply issue, I just don't buy that. There is absolutely no reason why this can't go ahead. It's an outline planning permission. The developer has said, the developers have said that they would build this out very quickly because it's a local firm. And that's what we need. We need houses in the northern parishes. We keep turning these things down based on things like grade A agricultural land. Quite clearly, there's only a small percentage of this is grade 1, whatever it's called, agricultural land. So it's not a reason to turn this down. The reason that we're being given to turn it down is because we're going to reach our land supply within any time soon. Quite clearly, we're not. It's going to be sometime next year. So, as I say, I don't buy this argument, this recommendation, and I will be certainly voting against the recommendation. I think we desperately need these houses, and we should just get on with this application and approve it.
Thank you, Councillor Wainwright. Anybody else?
Sorry, Chairman, I think I muted you. Sorry. Councillor Bird.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't normally agree with Councillor Wainwright, but I must say that he's hit the nail on the head here. Had this application gone in April, it'd probably been passed. I mean, it's been put back because of the newts, etc. And I think we have to be consistent with our planning. And I just find going through every one of these paragraphs that there is no particular anything on that which brings me to the attention that this would be a big problem to Ormsby. So that's where I feel about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bird. Anybody else?
Councillor Williamson, Chairman.
Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Yes, I must agree with Councillor Bird and Councillor Wainwright. I feel that reading the documentation for this site, this is a sustainable site, 750 metres from the nearest shop, the shopping area, centre of the village. It's surrounded on 3 sides by other housing estates and developments. It's in a sustainable area. It's in an area, and we've talked a lot about grade 1 agricultural land. It's in an area which has got a large percentage of the site, grade 3. So that's quite a significant part of the development of the village. And also the whole issue of having 16 2-bedroom houses in a village is really important. We see very often, very large houses being built, and there's very little access for younger people, especially in some of the villages, both in the northern parishes and in the southern parishes. I noticed that the officer says in 10.2 on page 30, 71, that this was a fine balance, the decision. I think it is a fine balance, but I think on balance, this is one we could approve, and I'd be quite happy to put an amendment to say that this is approved.
Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's been said before. If this had gone through a month ago, the recommendation was to approve. And the reason for refusal now would be, by the planning officer's own admission, a single issue of that we're now reaching our housing supply. That refusing or even granting on a single issue has always been troublesome for me. And in the past, to accept applications simply because we haven't had a land supply, I've always found troublesome. So just to refuse simply because we've now might be meeting the land supply, again, I find very troublesome. The echo is that the development is, I'm pleased there are 2-bedroom properties within it, which, as Councillor Wainwright has said, are important. Parking and vehicle access and driving and speeding has always been an issue and will continue to be so, development or no development. So, as I said, finely balanced, and in this instance, I'm probably minded to go against the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Anybody else wish to speak, please?
Councillor Tony Wright, Chairman.
Councillor Tony Wright.
Thanks very much. Yeah, normally when we come up with the issue of grade 1 agricultural land, I would certainly be having questions about it. But clearly what the officer has indicated here is that there's a very, very small section at the bottom end of the thing, and I think which is probably insignificant to this. The other issue is, of course, one of my main bugbears is the question of neighbourhood plans, that had they been pursued a bit further along the line, then that may well have been given as an indication as to which should be accepted or not. And unfortunately, in this case, as the parish council have said, is that it's certainly just in the early stages and can't be taken into account, unfortunately. And on that basis, I just think, you know, the arguments that have been put forward on balance, I think, you know, as has been said before, had this come up a year ago or 6 months ago, then clearly this would have gone through, and the argument about the housing land supply would not have been a case here. So I certainly am minded to actually support the application and go against the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Anybody else, please?
I have no further hands raised, Chairman.
Okay, so Councillor Wainwright, you're going to overturn the recommendation and propose to approve the application. Are you still muted?
Yeah, just muted, Councillor Wainwright, sorry.
Yes, that's certainly right, Chairman, yeah. Overturn the recommendation for approval.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Councillor Bird, that was Chairman.
Okay, so it's to overturn the recommendation. So this is to actually approve the application. Okay, I'll now hand you over to Sammy.
Thank you, Chairman. So members, just to confirm, this is voting to approve the application. So Councillor Annison.
For.
Councillor Bird.
For.
Councillor Fairhead.
Against.
Councillor Flaxman Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Graham Carpenter.
For.
Councillor Lawn. You just muted, Councillor Lawn.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Camden.
Against.
Councillor Mogford.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Wainwright.
For.
Councillor Williamson.
For.
Councillor Tony Wright.
For.
And Councillor Barbara Wright.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. That was 10-4, so the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. So we now move to item number 5, which is land adjacent to the Rains Court Lodge, 16 Euston Road, Great Yarmouth. And I invite Gordon Sutherland, Senior Planning Officer, to present. Thank you.
We're just opening the slideshow, Chair. And before I get going, just to advise that further to write in the report, we received a letter this week from the owner of Rains Court Lodge and the owner of the site, indeed, to advise that they fully support the proposed application. It's the same size adjacent to me as the previous hotel was, and I didn't have problems with that. The tower, it's higher on the corner, adds something special and pays homage to the former Labour Club opposite. It advises we do have to keep our heritage, but we also need to build for the future and our changing needs. Also supporting the fact that the majority of the accommodation is 2-bed and believes that there is demand at this time, and especially likes that it's a brownfield site. Also stating that the car park is busy and is an eyesore, and that there is plenty of council car parking across the street front. So that was just a letter that we came in this week from the owner of the property. So turning to the application itself, this is for the redevelopment of the site to create 28 self-contained flats adjacent Rains Court Lodge, 16 Euston Road, Great Yarmouth. The image that you should be able to see is the aerial, and my able assistant Rob is identifying the car park, which is the area of the site. And then to the left, you can see what would be the roof plan of the building. So you can see the mass of the building turning the corner. So the site is a piece of land about 0.2 acres, and it's at the corner of Euston Road and Marine Parade, off the seafront in Great Yarmouth. It's currently used for car parking, 25 spaces, and it was formerly the Rains Court Hotel, which was demolished in 2016. And it is located in the conservation area, which was designated on the 10th of October 2003. So the slide you see here is looking down Euston Road to the rear of the former aquarium. Do you want to click another slide? And again, this is looking towards the site from the seafront, so you can see the gap between the terrace, existing terrace to your left, and then that is Rains Court Lodge, which is the B&B to the right. So you can see it forms that corner. Next slide. Again, this is a closer shot coming along Marine Parade, I think, and so you can see the buildings going up the street. So next slide. Again, this is looking down, coming into towards the seafront. So you can see the corner there. Okay, next slide. So right, so I'll give you a description of what the development is. It's a proposal for 28 flats in a 4- and 5-story building with underground parking. The building is an L shape, turning the corner on the frontages of Euston Road and Marine Parade. The layout shows 26 2-bed units and 26 2-bed units and 2 3-bed units. There would be 6 car spaces adjoining Euston Road. Perhaps, Rob, if we can just go through a little bit further one more time. Right, so you can see those are the 6 spaces on Euston Road. And then in the basement to your right, this is the layout of the basement area. So there would be a further 10 spaces in the basement. Access to the underground parking would be taken from the south with a one-way direction, exiting onto Euston Road. The building, I say, is primarily, if we can go back to some elevations, please, Rob. That's fine. The building is primarily 4 floors above ground, with the upper floor within the roof. You can see the dormers breaking through the roof there. And then it rises to 5 stories on the corner in the form of a tower facing the 2 roads, with projecting balconies proposed on the 2nd and 3rd floors, and recessed balconies on the 4th and 5th. The proposed materials are red-faced brickwork with white mortar, stone-style sills, lintels and coins, with concrete interlocking tiles on the upper section of the roof and slate on the mansard lower sections, and PVCU sash-style windows. A dwarf brick wall is proposed along the road frontages, topped with a steel bar and post and rail. So in terms of responses and consultations, in addition to the letter I read out, prior to writing the committee report, we had received 2 letters of objection, which had been received with concerns as follows. Overdevelopment of the site, prominent position at the gateway to the seafront, proposal is detrimental to the character of the conservation area, no green space or trees, inadequate parking proposed, site is well used for parking, and also that it would be contrary to local plan policy TR12, changes of use in secondary accommodation area, also being out of character with the neighbouring buildings, as the building would be too big, waste facilities look inadequate, and inadequate parking area subject to flooding. Sorry, I'm just reading a note which advises that I'm not sure that changes anything, Dean. I think the letter. Okay, sorry, it was just to clarify that the site is owned by Mrs. Hammond, the mother of Councillor Hammond. Okay, sorry, just for clarification. Okay, in terms of consultation responses to the application. Highways, Norfolk County Council Highways have advised that a refusal of the application could not be sustained alone on the proposed parking, but raises concern at the location of the 6 spaces adjoining Euston Road and questions the usability of the 10 spaces. Rob's pulled up the slide again. Thank you. Beneath the building. So those are the Euston Road spaces, and then the layout of the underground parking. Archaeology says that should permission be granted, it seeks a program of recording. Ecology advises that a shadow habitats regulation assessment is required for the application. The lead local flood authority advised that a flood risk assessment and drainage strategy that was submitted are not in accordance with regulations. The County Council also seeks a financial contribution towards library stock and green infrastructure. The Environment agency advised that the flood risk assessment shows the ground floor apartments would flood internally by a depth of 1.2 meters in a 1 in 200 year flood event. Norfolk Council and Norfolk County Constabulary have provided design advice with regards to safety and security. Historic England have advised that it does not object to the development in principle, but the current proposal would result in harm to the historic significance of the conservation area by means of scale, bulk, form and detailing of the proposed building. This is also echoed by the Council's Conservation Service. And finally, the Environmental Health Officer makes recommendations with regards to providing reports regarding contamination. So turning to assessment of the application, which is set out on pages 49. The development is for more than 10 dwellings in accordance with Council's habitat monitoring mitigation strategy. Bespoke habitats regulation assessment is required to be provided in order to determine the application. At this time, no assessment has been provided. This is actually a sufficient reason in itself to refuse the application. The site lies within the Great Yarmouth development boundary, wherein development will be supported in principle unless material considerations outweigh that principle. And in this case, those would be matters of local identity, the character and appearance of the seafront conservation area, amenity, highway safety, and flood risk. Rob, could you just go back to some of the slides just to give some of the longer views of the site? Sorry, go back to the other, that's it, the other way. Perfect, that's it. So this slide is showing the site, the gap that you can see looking from the seafront. And then next slide. So again, this is just looking at a closer aspect, looking down Wellesley Road, from Wellesley Road. Okay, next one. Close in. Again, this is looking from the promenade, so you can see the gap between, and you can just go up and taller. You can just show there's quite a gap in there between the buildings. Yeah, and then that's a closer shot from the corner. Okay, I think that might be about it. Thanks, Rob. So, local identity, character and appearance of the seafront conservation area. These two considerations are linked, as the local identity here is derived from the characteristics that define the conservation area. And that is, in this case, the architecture, its design, scale and massing of buildings on Euston Road and Marine Parade, which are Victorian and early Edwardian seaside leisure and residential buildings. So the main observations from English heritage set out in the consultation section are that standing at the prominent corner of Euston Road and Marine Parade along Euston Road are a series of Victorian and Edwardian villas, large residential buildings, often detached and set in their own gardens with elegant architectural details such as Italianate towers and turrets. This contrasts with Marine Parade, where adjacent to the site is a row of 3-story terraced houses. That's on the left of this shot. To the east is the flank of the former Royal Aquarium, which is regarded as an impressive large building with decorated frontage designed to be the focal point of the street, though it's acknowledged that the aquarium is much changed. But together, this is a group of nationally important collection of buildings from the leisure industry of the period. So developing the site, in the opinion, could have an effect of historic significance. In this case, concern regarding the scale and height. The proposed building would match the height of the adjacent terrace on Euston Road, but rise up to 5 stories at the corner. Thank you, Rob. Which is taller than other buildings in either Marine Parade or Euston Road. This would mean that the proposed building would be seen above the Royal Aquarium in views from North Drive, and form an imposing feature within the surrounding streets. So this taller element is clearly intended to punctuate the two roads and form a corner turner with a chamfered face. However, it's not an elegant bay making the joining of the two street facades, but it's regarded as being heavy, bulky block with somewhat squat and inelegant form. Bit of a tongue twister there. The three-storey section takes its cue from the height of the Victorian terrace, but the facade is crammed with fenestration, i.e. windows and doors, due to the floor-to-ceiling heights and the number of small units it accommodates. The roof windows, again, show that the fourth storey has been fitted into the roof and adds to further serve to make the street facade cluttered. Other than its height, it doesn't reflect the character of the adjacent terrace. And that's what I've read out there is the view of English Heritage England. So it's considered that the proposal is too large and bulky, it's massing. Also that it's too tall compared with and viewed in the context of the neighbouring buildings. The number of units gives rise to the building size and multitude of windows across the elevations. Importantly, the upper floors would project above the former Royal Aquarium in longer views from the seafront and dominate the skyline. This would be significantly detrimental to the local identity and character and appearance of the conservation area, neither preserving or enhancing its historic character and appearance, which is the primary test. In terms of amenity, the density of the development would create 28 2- and 3-bed dwellings, which could reasonably expect to generate 30 people and 20+ vehicles. Except for the units with balconies, there would be no amenity space on site. There will be pressures for amenities off-site, including on-street parking, public spaces and leisure facilities. The consultation responses set out that the compensation would be needed to address these impacts. In the case of parking, there would be no provision off-site, and the county surveyor recommends omission of the 6 spaces off Euston Road and acknowledges that the development will result in additional pressure for on-street parking in the vicinity. As I mentioned before, an objector has questioned the adequacy of the waste storage within the building as shown on the ground floor. The highway and transport impact has stated in consultation that whilst there are reservations about the scale of the development, especially in relation to the 16 spaces, that would result in added pressure, likely result in added pressure on street parking. The constrained usability of the 10 spaces beneath and the remaining 6 spaces backing onto Euston Road at the intersection, they don't consider that alone it's a sufficient reason to refuse the application. Therefore, it's considered that in combination with the matters of adverse impact on local identity, character and appearance of the conservation area, amenity and flood risk, there is a sufficient number of adverse impacts that are not being mitigated by the development to substantiate a refusal. With regard to flood risk, the site is located partly within Zone 3A, and the flood risk assessment submitted shows that ground floor apartments, 7 units, would flood internally by 1.22 metres in the 1 in a 200-year flood event. To overcome that, it's advising that the finished first floor levels would need to be raised to 5.27 metres above datum, i.e. 1.52 metres above what is proposed. So the development proposed provides underground parking. Also, 7 of the 28 units on the ground floor would be at risk of flooding. Given this is a cleared site, it's considered that a development could be designed to remove the risk of flooding by omitting living areas below the level which could flood. So on the basis of that assessment, our recommendation is for refusal of the application as submitted, as being contrary to the aims of the core strategy and the policies of the emerging and adopted local plan. Chair, sorry, that was a bit long.
Thank you, Gordon and Rob, for your presentation. Any technical questions from any members, please? Please indicate to Sammy.
No hands raised, Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Sammy. So at this point, I invite Mr. Lee Hammond as agent to come forward, please. Mr. Hammond.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Hammond. So you have 5 minutes and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. I would like to thank the members for giving me the opportunity to speak. When planning was granted to demolish the hotel in 2015, it was deemed adjacent to a conservation area. In 2016, it was demolished and was only supposed to be a car park for the interim period. 6.6i, applicants encouraged to engage with council development control early on. Before anything was decided, we met with planning officer Jenna Mansthorpe. We proposed the demolition of the lodge and development of 48 units on the whole site. We did show her plans that had been drawn up. Gemma was opposed to this. We discussed all options with the planning officer. The outcome is the development we have here. This development had the then planning officer's opinion, approval, input and support on this brownfield site. You can understand the confusion we now feel. 6.5, making sufficient use of the land. The proposed development fits inside the footprint of the original building. The roof on Euston Road side is the same height as it was on the original building. On the Marine Parade side, there was a physical step in roof heights between each side. This joining now to the adjacent building. Along Marine Parade and North Drive, there are many, in fact, most buildings of this height or higher. The 5th floor tower was designed to be a striking corner feature in keeping with the former Labour Club tower. Following the skyline, it fits with the 2 towers on Euston Road and the height all along Marine Parade. Architecturally, the corner ends of terrace are a story higher than the adjoining terraces. This is visible all along the conservation area. There was never any green spaces at this site. The 41-bedroom hotel had 13 parking spaces, which all accessed onto Euston Road. Drainage, surface water from the site will be harvested and used as grey water for the flushing of toilets, therefore eliminating all surface water requirements and economically friendly. Underground parking, we propose 3 options which could be a condition. Option 1, we could move the entire development up 1 floor and have parking on the ground floor. Option 2, as highways have said, parking isn't necessary. We could lose it and use the entrance exit area for cycle store. Option 3, we could leave it as it is, but agree to add cycle store into the basement and look at replanning the layout. Bin storage is already adequately covered internally on the ground floor. 9.5, amenities. Is this a red herring? The town has capacity for thousands of visitors every day to use the town's amenities. 5.8, flood risk. We are prepared as a condition to raise the ground floor slab to the recommended 5.27 above datum, which covers the 1 in 200 year event. In over 40 years at this location, we have never had an issue with flooding. Habitat. We pay Great Yarmouth Council Planning Department for the habitat assessment that they require before planning. Now the officer is asking for an external report as he feels the council one is not adequate. Policies. You have read the policies in front of you to refuse. These policies can be used to support this application. Throughout the local plan, there are many that support it. The national plan policy framework, planning conditions, obligations also have many in support. 54, local plan authorities should use planning conditions to make developments accessible rather than dismiss them. Planning policy 55, planning conditions should be kept to a minimum and only impose where they are relevant and necessary. There are many more that could be quoted.
30 seconds remaining, thank you.
5.11, Historic England, do not object to the principle of the development. All the rest of the report is just an opinion. We all have opinions, unfortunately, cannot accommodate all of them. This has been proven by our planning officers' contradictory opinions. This is to be reminded that the members, this is a just deliverable brownfield site. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Any members of the committee got any questions for Mr. Hammond, please just indicate to Sammy. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Wainwright. You just muted, Councillor Wainwright, sorry.
So yeah, could you, Lee, could you just, I mean, it's not a planning consideration, I know, but could you confirm, are these flats to be purchased, you know, by individuals, or do you intend to rent them out? I know it's not a planning consideration, but I'd be interested to know.
Councillor Wainwright, we're not actually developing the site. The proposed buyers are planning on selling the flats. They are all going to be delivered within a year of planning permission.
So you don't know whether they're going to be sold. You don't know whether they are going to be rented.
We believe they are all going to be sold.
You believe? Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Bird.
Councillor Bird.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just one or two things that have come to my attention in the last day or so, and concerns to one or two people, is the balconies. If you were to look opposite at the Labour Club balcony, which you have got pictures, I believe, which are there, you will see on the balcony there's probably everything but the kitchen sink. Washing is out quite often. And what I was wondering is whether we could turn these balconies into more of a Juliet balcony rather than the large ones we've got up there now. Or if not, some sort of condition put on it so that laundry and bicycles and anything else, etc., would not be stored on the balcony. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bird. Any other questions for Mr. Hammond, please?
Councillor Williamson, Chairman.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just like to ask Mr. Hammond, has he consulted the Conservation Officer? Because some of the issues raised have come about conservation.
Mr. Hammond?
Yeah, we're not actually in a conservation area. We're adjacent to the conservation area, and it's just another opinion. And as to Mr. Bird's, Councillor Bird's question, I'm more than happy for it to be a condition of the planning that the balconies be turned into like a Juliet balcony or something of the sort to address the issues, as it is an eyesore.
Thank you. Anybody else got any questions, please?
Have no further hands raised, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hammond, for your time and your input. Thank you. We have no one wishing to speak as an objector. I call on any ward councillors at this point to come forward, please.
No one, Chairman.
No ward councillors. Okay. So
sorry, Chairman, we've just got Gordon who'd like to speak. I see him raising his hand.
Yes, Gordon. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, just to clarify, the site is well and truly in the conservation area and always has been since it was designated in 2003.
Okay, thank you. Okay then, so we move to the committee debate and the decision. It's over to the councillors what they think. Yeah, Gordon.
You just muted, Gordon.
Sorry.
Thanks.
One more thing is with regards to the Habitats Regulations assessment, the adopted policy of the council is that in major developments, you need a bespoke habitats assessment rather than the shadow one where basically you just hand over £110 in mitigation per unit. This one actually requires a detailed assessment of what the impacts would be on the conservation areas of special conservation and protection. That's why we would need a bespoke assessment in this case.
Okay, thanks Gordon for clarifying that, thank you. So yeah, we're now into the debate. So over to the councillors, what they feel with this application. Thank you.
Chairman, I have no hands raised. Oh, sorry, Dean would like to just come in if he can as planning manager, please, Chairman.
Dean, yeah.
You just muted, Dean.
Button there. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of, obviously, the principle of development is fine on this location. There is no argument about that whatsoever. The fact of the matter, it's really how you get to it. Some of the things have been sort of mentioned about conditions on this. What we can't really do at the moment is actually condition things that Lee was talking about. This is a full planning application. So things like sort of raising the floor level, the car parking, what have you there, would really have to be sort of subject to another application on this, or certainly amended drawings, let's put it that way, and subject to sort of reconsultation again on it. Which you can't really do as part of this application. As Gordon has also mentioned as well, in terms of this bespoke sort of habitat assessment requirement there, this is a sort of requirement of legislation as well to sort of back this up, which is part of the habitat sort of legislation. So it's not something we can just sort of override, and it is something that potentially is then subject to sort of legal challenge in that regard. So I think you have to think carefully about sort of any if you are minded to approve the application in this current form there, about what's actually being proposed. And really, to my mind, and certainly to officer's mind here, is that it does actually require going back to the drawing board and sort of re-looking at these aspects once again there. But as I say, the principle of development is not something to be sort of to go against, and is to be supported. It's just a question of how you get to it on this sort of prominent corner location. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Dean. So have we got any councillors wish to say anything in the debate?
I've no hands raised, Chairman.
Thank you. The application is to refuse. Have we a proposer and a seconder, please?
Councillor Lawn.
Councillor Lawn.
Propose we refuse.
Okay, Councillor Lawn, to refuse the application as it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I second that, Mr. Chairman.
That's Councillor Williamson, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, to go with the office recommendation.
Yeah, so this is to go with the officer's recommendation for refusal. Yeah, Sammy will now carry out the roll call. Thank you.
Thank you. So members, just to confirm, this is to go along with the officer's recommendation of refusal. Councillor Annison.
For.
Councillor Bird.
Against.
Councillor Fairhead.
For.
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
For.
Councillor Graham Carpenter.
Against.
Councillor Lawn.
For.
Councillor Camden.
For.
Councillor Mogford.
For.
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Wainwright.
For.
Councillor Williamson.
For.
Councillor Tony Wright.
For.
Councillor Barbara Wright.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. So that recommendation is refused as per the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we move to item number 6. application 110, 111 Wellesley Road, Great Yarmouth, on pages 54 to 71 on your agenda. And this is with Planning Officer Rob Tate to present, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent. I don't think I'm sharing, am I?
Councillor Bird, I just wanted to confirm this was the application that you were not going to take part in or vote on, please.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so this application is for the retrospective change of use to a 12-bedroom HMO at 110 to 111 Wellesley Road, also known as Ronadine. Now, the site here is on the corner of Wellesley Road and Paget Road. It's actually only a stone's throw away, really, from Gordon's application that we we're just discussing. So externally, it's quite similar to the other properties in the street, being 2 stories with a basement and these bay windows as well. This is the view from down Paget Road, and then this is the rear. It's these 2 ones here with the 2 yards and the external doors here. Now, there's extensive planning history on the site, which is detailed at 1.2 in your report, and I'm sure members will be well aware of this. So the proposal improves the layout from applications that have gone previously, with the most recent one being dismissed on appeal, which is attached at the end of your report there. So as you can see, this is what is existing. So it has changed slightly, I think, from these, because when I visited the site back in August, and room 16 here was a kitchen, which we'll see later on in the photos. But this is what's being proposed. So the actual room sizes are detailed at 1.3 in the report. If I just walk you through, there's now a kitchen and a dining room and a living area or a lounge on the ground floor, providing some more communal living space. And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bedrooms on the ground floor. On the upstairs, there's a kitchen and a living area as well, and then a further 7 bedrooms up here. Now, some of these bedrooms are quite well sized. They all exceed the minimum requirements set out in emerging policy H12, although obviously with the door openings and layouts of some of these rooms, such as 10, 7 and 2, they do fall towards the lower end of the standards there. So the proposal, as I said, improves the layout, and it is in the back of the seafront area, this peachy kind of greeny colour here. So the property's on the corner here, and this is the back of the seafront area. This is where Gordon's application was just earlier, to give you a bit of context. So in this zone here, emerging policies GY7 and H12 resist the change of uses to HMOs. I'll explore that in a bit more detail later on. The application site is also in a conservation area, and in the borough-wide local plan, in the secondary holiday accommodation zone here, in the pinky purpley colour as well. So the property is subject to an enforcement notice, which is kind of detailed and more at 1.8 in your report on page 56, and this is due to be complied with by the 5th of January. And obviously members should be aware of the Equalities Act as well there. But if members are minded to resolve against officer recommendation, I believe that this could be extended further, obviously with the winter period coming in mind, and obviously COVID as well there. So if we just run through a few photos, this is back when I visited the site in August, so not all the rooms are photographed, but I think they do show you how the rooms have the sinks in, which are due to be removed, and this is detailed on the plans and in the report as well here. So if we just run through a few photos. So this is the upstairs kitchen. This is due to be moved and turned into a bedroom. Obviously you can see here how it is at the moment. The bay windows are split, and this doesn't provide the best form of living accommodation. This is the downstairs kitchen area. As you can see, it's quite clean and tidy, and then this is the other side. This window here actually goes into the rear yard area, which you can see here, and obviously this rear yard area and the rear yard just to the west as well was noted in the inspector's decision with rooms looking out into this area not providing high quality outlook, but this has been amended in the plans, and obviously you can see that no rooms are now proposed to be looking out into these rear courtyard areas. So emerging policy, or if we start with the policy we have at the moment, which is in your committee report HEU 23, this is the current adopted policy, and the previous inspector's decision have found that the application is broadly compliant with these. But the emerging policies are also in your report on pages 60 and, oh, no, not 60. 62 and 63. So obviously members will be aware that our draft local plan part 2 has been submitted to the inspectorate, and policies with no outstanding objections can hold significant weight now. So GY7 and H12 are 2 of those policies. Both of these restrict HMOs or new HMOs in the back of the seafront area. And if I just read some of the supporting text from GY7, this will give members a bit of a background as to why. So the supporting text says, the area has significant potential for the future by making the best use of its pleasant buildings, proximity to the sea, and relatively low property values. A study into appropriate land uses in the former borough-wide local plan secondary holiday accommodation areas identified the potential of encouraging more family occupancy and professional offices into the area, but recognised the challenges of limiting parking and increasingly run-down character. There has been a tendency over a number of years for former hotels and B&Bs in the area to become HMOs, and this has led to complaints and generally more negative perceptions of the area. While there is a recognised need for HMOs in the borough, a significant minority of them can result in problems for neighbouring occupiers, and an increasing concentration of them is not conducive to either the continued success of the remaining tourism businesses, nor in the gradually developing a positive new character for the area. The policy therefore seeks to resist further HMO uses in this particular area. So if we just run through some of the consultation responses as well, there are no objections from the statutory consultees. No neighbours commented. Environmental health noted that they need to comply with the fire and amenity standards. The resilience officer did note that the site is within flood zones 2 and 3. And a flood response plan has been submitted, which will be made available to residents as well. 5.4, we can see the floor area guidelines. All rooms exceed this, and the floor measurements that I mentioned earlier don't include the ensuite areas, although like I said earlier, they do, some of the rooms fall towards the minimum areas of these standards. 5.8 notes the lack of outdoor amenity spaces and lack of cycle parking, and now the layout has been significantly improved over the previous refusals. Although with added weight towards the emerging policies, it's recommended to refuse the application in line with GY7 and H12. Finish there. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Any technical questions for the planning officer, please? If you could just indicate, Sammy.
Sorry, Councillor Myers.
Yeah, Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so a question for Rob. I was looking at the inspectorate's reasons for refusals last time, particularly on page 70, 8, 9, 10 and 11. How does the redesigning of the interior and the new plans, does those plans mitigate or bring any form of mitigation to 8, 9, 10 and 11 with regards to the inspectorate's report? Thank you.
Yeah, so since the last application, and they also came with some pre-app advice in the summer as well, they have improved the layout. So before the kitchen, like I said, was in that room upstairs where the bay window was split, and that is now a larger bedroom. And also the rooms towards the rear, they no longer have, or it's no longer proposed to have, windows looking out into that courtyard area, which obviously means that there's not the oppressive outlook kind of into that area as well. And with the sinks being removed as well, that does make the room sizes and the room space actually more usable in that aspect there.
Thank you. Anybody else with any technical questions, please?
I can see no further hands raised, Chairman.
So at this point, we invite Mr. Graham Knowles as agent to come forward, please.
you, Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
Go
we
ahead.
can. So, Mr. Norse, you have 3 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon, Chairman and Councillors. I'm speaking this afternoon on behalf of the applicant, Mrs. Barbara Wheeler. As noted, the applicant has sought to address the previous concerns through this application of both the previous refusal reasons and in relation to the planning inspector's decisions. In both of the previous 2 appeals made against the previous refusals, the planning inspectors did not raise objection to the principle of an HMO use in this locality, but rather considered a small number of the rooms used as being substandard. The current scheme before you seeks to overcome those objections. Following a recent pre-application process, the scheme was reduced to 12 rooms only, along with 2 kitchens, separate lounge and dining room. All rooms are provided with their own ensuite facilities and meet the minimum room size for this type of use, as confirmed at paragraph 5.5 of your report. The applicant, Mrs. Wheeler, lives on site and also manages the HMO. There have been no complaints made to the council about how the HMO operates, and as noted at paragraph 1.5 of your report, that the property is well maintained. In addition, you will note there's been no neighbour or statutory consultee objection to the HMO use. Policy HOU 23 is the adopted local plan policy which controls HMO development. The proposed scheme is considered to comply with this policy. As stated at paragraph 3.2 of your report, the saved local plan policies are considered to have the greatest weight in the determination of this application. Yet policy HOU 23 is not referred to in the recommendation of refusal at paragraph 6.2. Lack of on-street parking is also referred to in the officer report, but this was not a reason for refusal previously. Very few existing tenants own their own cars. The site is also, of course, within a short distance from the town centre and has easy access to public transport and other town centre facilities. The location is considered very sustainable. Officers also refer to emerging policy GY7 within the recommendation. Criteria E of that policy allows for the provision of dwellings and self-contained apartments within this locality. At pre-application stage, conversion to apartments was an alternative route being suggested by the planning case officer. The principle of some form of residential use would therefore be acceptable in this location. Conversion to apartments would have no less impact on the locality than the current proposed scheme. Conversion to, say, 4 or 5 2-bed apartments could easily result in a greater number of occupiers than that proposed within the 12-person HMO use. There'd be no less pedestrian or traffic movement, and the external appearance of the property would not change. In summary, the proposed use makes an essential contribution to low-cost affordable housing within the borough and is considered to comply with adopted policy. Indeed, the council housing team have approached the applicant previously.
30 seconds remaining. Thank you.
Okay, asking whether there were any vacancies at the property to assist with meeting local housing need. There is a strong need for this type of well-managed accommodation within the borough, and should this application be refused and the current enforcement that is upheld, then this will cause severe hardship to current occupants in terms of finding alternative accommodation. I therefore request that members support the application, which does meet adopted planning policy. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Knowles. Any members got any questions for Mr. Knowles, please? Please indicate to Sammy.
Councillor Wainwright?
Yes, Councillor Wainwright.
Sorry, is it Mr. Hammond? Hammond, is it?
No, Mr. Knowles.
Oh, Mr. Knowles, could you just confirm? I mean, I don't know how many sort of residents are in there at the moment.
At the moment, I believe there are 18 lettable rooms, and that will be reduced to 12 under the current scheme.
And all these 18 are let, are they?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else with any questions?
No further questions, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Knowles, for your time and your input. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
We have no one wishing to speak as an objector to the application, so I call on any ward councillors at this point.
No hands raised, Chairman.
Okay then, so we move to committee debate. So to the councillors what they feel. Thank you.
I have no hands raised, Chairman.
Okay then, it's recommended for refusal. Have we got a proposer and a seconder for that, please?
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to follow the officer's recommendation for a refusal.
Okay, have we a seconder for that, please?
I'll second that, Chair.
Councillor Camden.
Okay, so we're going along with the officer's recommendation for refusal, and Sammy will now undertake the roll call.
Thank you, Chairman. So again, members, just to confirm, this is in line with the recommendation of the officer for refusal. So Councillor Anderson.
For.
Councillor Fairhead.
For.
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
For.
Councillor Graham Carpenter.
For.
Councillor Lawn.
For.
Councillor Camden.
For.
Councillor Mogford.
For.
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Wainwright.
For.
Councillor Williamson.
For.
Councillor Tony Wright.
For.
And Councillor Barbara Wright.
For.
Thank you. Chairman, that is in line with the officer's recommendation refusal. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 7, we don't have any other business to report. So I'd just like to thank everybody for attending the meeting this evening, and close the meeting at 17:58. And just everybody, if they could just remain seated while